But I wanted to get back to Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull, who I showed you together at the top of the show. We've heard a lot from both of them in recent weeks, especially with the release of Malcolm Turnbull's book. And watching them speak on this and that, it got a few of us thinking a bit. Some people noticed some similarities, others look for points of difference. Anyway, we just put a few clips together and have a look for yourselves.
But the core message for the Australian political establishment is climate change is real, and for the current Conservative government of Australia, who have repudiated a number of the actions which I took in office.
If you go to any of the right-wing think tanks or you read the Murdoch press, it's just full of climate denialism, and it is designed to deflect from the real objective, which has to be to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions.
If I am returned as the leader of the party and the government and as Prime Minister, then I will be very clear about one thing. This party and government will not be lurching to the right on the question of asylum seekers, as some have counselled us to do.
This is what's happened to the Liberal Party. It has become so tribalised. I mean, there's some very keen observations of George Brandis in the book, which I think are among the most insightful, about the way in which the right wing have basically taken the liberalism out of the Liberal Party.
To recall these difficult times is just painful. And the thing that's most painful through it all is just the active sense of betrayal. Betrayal by people who were very close to you, and betrayal by people who you thought you could trust.
So you could easily, in that sort of environment, where you're literally being told by this person, don't trust him, that person, don't trust her, that person, don't trust any of them, you could literally become just convulsed in a sort of sea of paranoia.
It's the simple message I have for Rupert Murdoch as Citizen Rudd is this: you don't own Australia. For us and for Bill, dealing with the Murdoch mafia is kind of like dealing with a daily evisceration.
To which Murdoch says 3 years of Labor wouldn't be so bad. So think about that. So determined were they to get rid of a Prime Minister they did not own, because this is all about power, remember? Because the one thing those plutocrats knew, the billionaire media proprietors knew, was that I did not belong to them.
But the parallel question, of course, Lee, is why would someone move to decapitate a first-term Prime Minister when, in my case, we'd been ahead out of 87 opinion polls, 86 of them, and were ahead at the time of the coup?
In our own polling, we were in the August track, which we call it, we were 52-48 ahead, and in the published polls, as everyone knows, we were 51-49 behind, which is effectively level pegging. So there's no question the government was doing well, we were thoroughly competitive, and we were in a position where we had every chance, every prospect of being able to win the election.
I was the first Prime Minister of Australia to come out in full public support of marriage equality. None of my predecessors did. I did.
But I don't think if Abbott had remained Prime Minister we would have seen same-sex marriage legalised, let's get real. The fact is I legalised it. So I delivered on my commitment to enable people, regardless of their sexual orientation, to be married.
And that's the question about fair and balanced coverage. And that's why, for example, I believe passionately in the future of the independence and proper funding of the ABC. Not because we're here, but because it's an essential institution in a free media in this country.
I'm a great friend of the ABC, and so my affection for and respect for the ABC is so great that I want it to be its best self and to get its journalism right. So that's my concern.
For Mr. Rudd and Mr. Turnbull, you two have a lot in common. You both are moderate, wealthy, and not very popular in your own parties.
There we go, James Morrow. They're peas in a pot, aren't they? They were both the best Prime Minister ever. They were both going to save the planet. They both delivered gay marriage. They were both torn down by an ungrateful party because they were going to win and because the evil Murdoch empire was against them.
I love, look, watching that, it's a wonder that you ever see the two guys in the same room together. You think they're the same person. Like Kevin Rudd, though, really when it comes down to it, is just Malcolm Turnbull in a cheaper suit. I loved the line about the Murdoch Mafia there, the Murdoch paranoia. If for the Murdoch Mafia, do we all get cool nicknames? Can I be Jimmy Knuckles now? I mean, what, But it is very funny that that these guys are both. I think the thing that really sums them up, they're both victims. They both believe that they've been so hard done by everybody, their party, the press. Everybody's been unfair to them. Poor little Kevin, poor little Malcolm. And, that's, I think, more than anything else, what turns people off.
Yeah, Gemma, it's so obvious. People have been watching this play out, and this has been the obvious, I suppose, interpretation of what's gone on here, that there's more that is similar about them than...
They are strikingly similar. Just picking up on James's point more broadly, as I watched those grabs play out, a couple of things sprung to mind. Primarily is they're talking to each other. They're like a couple of old blokes urinating into the wind and don't realise that they are both getting absolutely soaked. Nobody cares anymore, and particularly in this COVID environment, nobody cares about the fact that Mr Turnbull can't seem to join the dots and understand that he was the first person to boot out a sitting Prime Minister. He himself was then booted out. Cannot make the connection, and unless I missed something in the ABC interview, Chris, and I may well have, if I did, I stand corrected, but I don't think he was particularly hard pressed on that point during that interview, which to me is a substantive point in his career as Prime Minister of this country. But more broadly, if we've been talking as a nation about the things that we want to leave behind in this new post-COVID environment, that kind of political BS is one of the things we want to leave behind. The electorate is disengaged from politics because of that kind of thing, because you've got two blokes with glass jaws and egos that don't match, and now look at the way they're carrying on like a couple of spoiled toddlers who wet their pants in public.